Ever opened 10 browser tabs, forgotten why you opened them, gone to get a glass of water, come back, and somehow ended up watching cat videos for 40 minutes? If that sounds familiar, this video was made for you. Living with ADHD in a world that was designed for brains that work differently is at the very least exhausting, and the generic productivity tips floating around out there usually only pile on the guilt without actually solving anything. The good news is that there is a way to be productive that doesn't involve punishing yourself with aggressive timers, endless to-do lists, or that relentless inner voice that never stops demanding more. What you'll find here are strategies that respect the way your brain actually works, and that prove self-care and productivity are not enemies. Quite the opposite. In fact, one depends on the other far more than you might realize. You know that feeling of freezing up in front of a task, knowing full well you need to do it, but your body simply won't cooperate? With ADHD, that isn't laziness. That's your brain asking for a bridge before it can make the leap. One simple and genuinely powerful technique is mental visualization before you act. Spend about 5 seconds imagining the movement happening. Just imagine it. No pressure, no demands. If getting out of bed feels impossible, don't think about getting up, just think about moving one leg, then the other. The brain starts building momentum even before the body acts, and then the action follows almost naturally. It's like taking a short run-up before a jump, and the best part is, it works even for the tasks you absolutely dread. Have you ever tried to convince yourself that this time it'll happen and it didn't? Of course you have. Instead of fighting your own mind, why not trick it in a fun way? Set a short timer, 10, 15 minutes, and imagine yourself as a character, the efficient accountant, the organized assistant, the chef who needs to leave the kitchen spotless. It sounds a bit daft, but it strips away the emotional weight of the task and turns the whole thing into a sort of game. With ADHD, the brain responds brilliantly to novelty and playfulness. When you take on a temporary role, the task stops being your boring obligation and becomes the character's mission, and that's when dopamine shows up almost without warning. And the best bit, when the timer goes off, you can stop without guilt. Though there's a very good chance you'll want to carry on. Sure, if you constantly forget to take your medication, drink water, or do anything that should be part of your routine, the problem probably isn't a lack of commitment, it's a lack of a trigger. Habit anchoring works on exactly this principle. You attach what you keep forgetting to something you already do automatically. Give the cat their treats every day. Put your medication right next to the bag of cat food. Simple as that. The secret lies in using what already exists in your routine as a springboard for what needs to enter it. With ADHD, building habits from scratch is a genuine challenge, but slotting a new behavior inside an already established one drastically reduces the mental effort required. And once it starts working, you'll realize that self-care can be far less complicated than it seemed. Have you ever noticed that you can get so much more done when someone else is around, even if that person isn't helping you with anything directly? That has a name, body doubling. And for people with ADHD, it's one of the most underestimated tools out there. It doesn't have to be anyone, a phone call, a podcast playing in the background, or a silent video call can all create that sense of presence the brain needs to stay on track. What happens is that a light social connection activates a subtle, almost imperceptible sense of accountability that helps sustain momentum without pressure. Productivity doesn't have to be a lonely, miserable experience, and body doubling proves exactly that. If you haven't tried it yet, give it a go study or work alongside someone on a live YouTube stream doing the same thing. The results might genuinely surprise you. You know that feeling of having 1,000 things swirling around in your head at once and not being able to start any of them? That isn't disorganization. That's your brain trying to be Google Drive, the calendar, and the project manager all at the same time. A brain dump sorts this out in a brutally simple way. You grab a piece of paper or open a notes app and pour everything out. No order, no categories, no judgment. Just tip it all out. The magic lies in separating the moment of thinking from the moment of doing two functions that, when mixed together, will bring anyone with ADHD to a grinding halt. Once everything is on paper, your head gets to breathe, and then you can look at the list with much greater clarity to decide what comes first. One is like emptying a heavy rucksack before choosing what you actually need to carry. Ever notice that when you get home after a long day, sitting down on the sofa is practically signing a contract with inertia? The body stops, the brain switches off, and the washing up in the sink stays there until morning. The trick is simple. Use the first few minutes after you arrive before you sit down, before you even take your shoes off, to sort out whatever is quick. The energy you brought in from outside is still active, and momentum is on your side. With ADHD, starting is always the hardest part. But once you're already in motion, keeping that rhythm going for a few more minutes costs far less than it seems. Putting a load of laundry on, tidying the worktop, getting things ready for tomorrow, all of it flows so much better when you ride the wave, instead of trying to generate one from scratch. And then self-care stops feeling like an extra chore and becomes a natural part of your day. If someone books a work meeting in your diary, you'll almost certainly show up because it has a time, a commitment, a responsibility attached to it. But when the commitment is to yourself, it mysteriously disappears. The solution is to treat your personal tasks with the same respect, create a calendar event, give it a title, set an agenda, and note down where you left off last time. A scheduled meeting is a meeting that actually happens. That simple act of formalizing a commitment to yourself completely changes the relationship your brain has with that task. It stops being a vague intention and becomes something concrete with a time and a place. For anyone living with ADHD, that external structure acts like scaffolding that holds up what working memory alone cannot. And when you start treating yourself as your own most important client, productivity and self-care begin to walk hand in hand. If you've ever been stuck on a task for too long and felt your brain simply grind to a halt, the problem might not be mental, it might be physical. The ADHD brain responds brilliantly to movement, and changing position regularly is a way to stimulate dopamine without any elaborate effort. A Swiss ball instead of a desk chair, standing at your desk for an hour, doing part of your work from the sofa, small variations make a real difference. This isn't about restless movement for its own sake, but about using your body as an ally for focus. When you move, the angle changes, the environment changes, the stimulus changes, and the brain wakes up again. Habits like these seem trivial until you notice that the task you've been stuck on for 40 minutes got sorted in 10, simply because you stood up and had a little walk around. Body and mind work together, and ignoring one to force the other rarely ends well. Productivity and self-care are so often placed on opposite sides, as if looking after yourself is the reward for after everything is done. But for people with ADHD, that logic doesn't hold, and the truth is, it doesn't hold for most people. When you start to see that moving your body, respecting your limits, and creating gentle structures are all part of productivity, everything shifts. The strategies we've looked at here don't ask you to transform yourself into a different person or force a pace that isn't yours. They ask the opposite, that you work with your brain, not against it. Burnout isn't a sign of dedication. It's a sign that something in the system needs to change. And changing that system, one small habit at a time, is precisely what separates those who burn out from those who genuinely go the distance. By making it this far, you already have something most people never stop to look for: a set of strategies that respect your brain instead of fighting it. But now comes the most important question: which of these ideas are you going to put into practice today? Not tomorrow, not next week. Today. Because the biggest enemy for someone with ADHD isn't a lack of information, it's the gap between knowing and doing. Pick one thing, just one. It might be a brain dump before bed, the playful timer for that task you've been avoiding, or simply riding the momentum when you get home. Small, consistent changes build results that no sudden overnight transformation ever could. You don't need to reinvent yourself. You need to know yourself better and create structures that work in your favor. If this resonated with you, just imagine what's coming next. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell because every week there's new content made for people who want to live and work in a way that actually does them good. See you in the next one.